Hello, this is James Stevens of Welch College, and can you guess what we're going to do this week? We're going to talk about the guitar. And I thought this might be a good thing to look at because there's so many of our churches, the kids are using guitars, they're trying to learn, and there's so many practical applications. You can't always stick a piano in your suitcase or in your trunk and take with you if you're going on a trip somewhere, but a guitar is great for many occasions, and some of you may play guitar very well. I play a little bit, not great. I'm sort of embarrassed to be doing this, but I thought we would spend a little time this week looking at the guitar. So we've looked at the piano some and some basic music theory, and I thought I'd try to explain a little bit on how to read the guitar tabs in case you wanted to learn yourself or want to help some of your youth or someone in your church learn how to play. You may have had a curiosity about it. It may seem like it's all a mystical art when you see these funny looking lines and boxes, but we're just going to explain that and look at it for a little bit this week. On our PDF, it's labeled Week 6 Guitar. If we on example 1, if you'll look at that and print it out or pull it up on your computer, this just has some basic diagrams that I've put together. The first part of this I got from an internet guitar site, but I've modified it some. Then I created the things in the other pages. But let's look at this first page, example 1. And here, what you see is a picture of, on the right side of the part of the guitar neck, and then just a little the tuners. There's actually 6 of them, but we just cut it off so we have room so you see the 2 of the tuners. Now the tuners on the guitar are used to tune the strings. Guitar has 6 strings, and on each of those, when you turn the tuner one way or the other, it makes the note sharper or flatter. And when you look at this, look at the different things on the neck here. We see the guitar has 6 strings. Now as you look at the guitar neck, on the left we see a tab, a guitar tab, which is used to write the chords that someone would play guitar on. And if you'll look at it compared to the little box with the lines and going down and across on the left side where I've got labeled E, A, D, G, B, E, the names of the guitar strings, I want you to look at the guitar picture of the guitar neck and see that the little box on the left or the lines up and down really just matches the guitar neck and the picture you see on the right. Now on the very top, right before you get to the tuners, at the very top of the neck, we see something called the nut. It's just a little heavier bar line with the last place the strings go over before they get to the tuners. And then we see a bunch of bars below that on the guitar, and these are each called frets. And the first one, after you get past the nut, coming down will be the first fret, second fret, third fret, and so on. And when we play notes on the guitar, we put our fingers on the strings in the middle of but in between the frets. Okay. Now look on the picture of the hand here. One thing you may want to notice, if you've had piano or taken piano, when we number our fingers, we number our thumb, number 1, our first finger 2, middle finger 3, ring finger 4, and the pinky 5. From the guitar, that's a little bit different since we don't usually, most of the time use our thumb to play a note, even though someone may reach it over the neck sometime to grab a bass note. We mainly just number these first 4 fingers. We start with our index finger on the guitar is number 1. This is on our left hand. This is what we would use to put our fingers on the strings to create the different sounds. So our first finger, our index finger, is number 1. Our middle finger is number 2. Our ring finger is number 3. And our pinky is number 4. Okay, so sometimes when you see the pictures, and we'll see these in a few minutes, of where the dots are on the tabs, they'll have the numbers, and the numbers will relate to these fingers. So remember, number 1 is your index finger, middle finger is number 2, your ring finger is number 3, and your pinky is number 5. Okay, now let's skip down here and look to example 2 that I've shown. What I've done here is basically shown a larger enlarged guitar tab here, and I'm letting you see each of the strings from left to right if you're looking at it like that, where the guitar is facing you. Or the lowest string is E. And here I'm trying to show you with the arrows how each of these strings relates to where on the keyboard compared to where middle C is. Now we've learned where middle C is and how to recognize the keys, and if you don't remember, go back and review this, and it's important stuff to sort of get a good grasp on. But the lowest string would be the E that is below middle C. All right. Now when I'm holding the guitar playing it, the lowest string is actually the one that's closest to me. It's highest on the guitar neck towards me, but it's the lowest pitch string. And remember, a pitch has to do with how high or low a note is. So E, and the next string up would be A. The next string up would be D. And then the next one would be G. And then B. And then E. Okay, so every guitar will be tuned this way. There are sometimes you may have some rare creative tuning, but as a whole, they're all this way. Now, interesting, the bass guitar has the same first four strings, or the lowest strings. Its four notes will be E, A, D, G. Of course, they sound lower when you do that. And once again, I've shown a picture of this nut, which is just the very top of the neck where the strings go over the last time before they go into the tuners. And then we have the different frets. Now, the first fret is the bar that's past the nut. But when we play a note that would be for the first fret, we don't actually put our finger on the fret, but we put our finger in between, on the string, in between the fret, the two frets, or on this first fret, it would go between the nut and the first fret, and then the second fret, third fret, and so on. And notice that from left to right on this diagram, we have our lowest strings, E, A, and then going towards the right to the highest, D, G, B, E. Okay? Now, we're going to jump over to our last page, and basically I'm going to show you in the key of C the three major chords that you would most likely encounter and the three minor chords. Now, if you'll look on these tablatures here, these tabs, guitar tabs, look at the first one, number C. All right? We see a 1 that's on the second string from the right. Okay, so that's the highest pitch string. So here's the top one, and here's the second one. So when I see a 1, that means to put my finger on right in the middle between the nut and the first fret. That's the first finger. And the next one I see, the 2, if you'll look at that, you'll see that it's on the fourth line from the right. Okay, so I'll come up 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll put my finger in between the first and the second frets, or my second finger, and then my ring finger, number 3, is going to go on the fifth line from the right, and it's going to go in between the second and third frets. So if I put all my fingers down at those places and play that, hey, I've got a C chord. Now I'm off to going. And when you play that, many times when people start playing, they just strum it. There's different ways you can play it. You can pick your fingers one at a time, create some different sort of sounds, or you might do a country beat, different things. But as a rule, when you first start playing, just strum it. And there's lots of songs you can do by just strumming the chords in a real simple fashion. Now look at this next diagram, and we see an F chord. Now let me explain this. Here we see a X above one of the strings. When we see an X above a string on a tab like this, that simply means don't play that note. That means it's X'd out. And it really means that note, it does not belong in that chord. So if you played it, it would sound wrong. Listen to me play an F chord. Here's the F chord. And here's, but if I add that lowest string, hear that? That note doesn't match. So when you see the X, that just simply means don't play that string. Now if you look on this, the F chord too, you'll see 1 on the first string and the second string on the first fret here, in between the nut and the first fret. And what that means that on both of that is you lay your finger just on its side to cover both of those strings and press those down. So on the F chord, I would press my finger on the first two strings. My second finger would go on the third string, the G string, and would be on the second fret, and my second finger would go on the third string, second fret, and my third finger would go on the fourth string on the third fret. So that gives me an F chord. I'm sorry if this has gotten a little bit out of tune. I've moved it in and out of the weather, and it's some beat up old guitar anyway. But anyway, on this next one is a G7 chord. Now sometimes you'll see a 7, but in key of C, a lot of times a G chord would be a G7. Now look at this one. We have our first finger that's on the first string, and then it's in the first fret. Our middle finger, finger number 2, is going to reach all the way up to the next to the lowest pitch string on the A string. I'm going to put it on the second fret, and then my third finger is going to reach up to the lowest pitch string on the E string and play the G. So that gives me a G7 chord. Now sometimes, if you'll notice on the G7 chord here, or like the C chord, you'll notice that I've got the little finger markings where you put down your finger on some of the strings, and on some of the strings there's nothing there. Well, sometimes you might see on a tab at the top of that, where the X was on the F, sometimes you'll see a little circle, and what that means is simply that it's an open string. That means nothing's touching it, but it's still the right note in the chord, so go ahead and play it. Okay? And the next, if we look at the next ones here, we have the 3 minor chords that would go in the key of C major. And notice once again there's an X on the E string, the lowest string there, so we wouldn't play it. So I put on the D minor, I put my finger on the first fret, and my second finger on the second fret, the third string, and my third finger on the second string on the third fret. So I got a D minor chord, and the same thing for an E minor chord and for an A minor chord. So listen to all these chords. Got a C major, got an F major, got a G7 chord, a D7 chord, D minor chord, an E minor chord, and an A minor chord. So what I want you to do is to study these diagrams and see if you can understand, how this is all put together. Remember, the little tab box here where we write chords on is really just a picture of the top of the guitar neck. And if you can see how they compare to each other, then you can see where your fingers are supposed to go when you see the little dots on the strings. That means put your fingers on those strings, looking at it like you were looking at a guitar neck. So you can put the neck beside it and look at that. And what I want you to do too is maybe find a guitar if you don't play. Try to put your fingers on some of these strings, see if you can look at it and understand what's going on. And I look forward to your feedback. I thought this would be something different to do, something that might be real practical, and it might be helpful to understand. And try to, if you don't play the guitar, to maybe take the mystique out of some of what that is. So anyway, I hope you can learn a little bit from this, and I hope it's clear to understand. Please leave me some questions on this, and I'll try to explain anything